How do you do it? I don't know how you do it. That is what I tend to hear a lot whenever I'm speaking to someone about my writing career. Mostly it's alluding to the fact that I work full time and I write around that. So people are always really surprised to hear that I wrote full books around my full time job, often alongside other commitments. Hello, I'm Patricia Marquez. I'm a writer and an author. I have published 4 books with Hodder and Stoughton, the Inspector Reis series, and I also work full time. Not in publishing. I work in higher education at the moment, and that has kind of been the case for the entirety of my professional writing life. So, one of the realities of writing or of wanting to be a writer, right, is that we start out romanticizing what that looks like, mostly because of media and what we've been fed on TV. Also, I think unless you've gone through the full process of writing a book, you never quite understand just how much goes into it because we tend to stop too soon. And that was the case for me. I would basically start writing, get to 20,000, 25,000 mark, and then I would find a more exciting idea to kind of go and play with and start again. I wrote outlines like from the beginning to end, all of these things. And I personally got to a point where I had to give myself an ultimatum. I had to create a really tough situation in order to prove to myself that I could actually get through writing a novel. I wanted to finish a draft. That was it. I participated in NaNoWriMo. I know some people call it NaNoWriMo. I think I'm probably in the NaNoWriMo camp, and that's probably wrong. I don't know. Joined about 4 of those, in a row. And I was hitting the 50,000 words, but I wasn't really finishing. And then I was just scrapping all of those words. So I could get the word count. I could write. I knew I could do that. But, creating a full draft that you could then go on to work on, that was something that I was really struggling with. So, of course, for some crazy reason, I thought the best thing for me to do was for me to go and get an MA in creative writing, which I did with City University, well, formerly City University. I think it's now City St. George's. And it was a 2-year course. And in your second year, you had to write a full novel. And the catch was if you didn't write the novel, then you failed your course. So you had to write the 50,000 words. Bearing in mind that this cost me at the time £12,000, failing was not really an option. So that was the impossible situation I created for myself. I did the MA. I did the MA while I was working, again, full time. I was working full time, doing the MA, attending the classes, evening classes, because at the time they were doing evening classes, which was really, really great, really accessible. And then doing all the assignments that came with, doing a postgrad and all the extras, all the trimmings that come with that. I was doing all of those things while still working full time. A lot of people said I was insane, and I think I was a little bit insane. And to be quite honest, I think you have to be a little bit insane to write, to want to be a writer, and to actually do it. I think there has to be a few screws loose in your head. And then the second year of my MA, I was writing the novel. I learned a lot. I learned a lot of things from there. We interacted with industry as well, which was really great because I hadn't done that before. Because 10 years prior to that, I'd done a BA in creative writing. And that was more craft focused. And there were some craft sessions in the MA, which was good because it helped to just refine a little bit more what I was already doing, seeing what I was already doing right, tweaking what I wasn't doing so right, that kind of thing. But I think where the MA was most useful was in putting me in that impossible situation where I had to write no matter what. Like if I was coming home tired, if I had other things to do, it didn't matter. I still needed to deliver a book by this deadline. And I think what that taught me to do was learn a system for myself, design a system for myself that would allow me to do what I needed to do, which was write that book. And along that came, it was trial and error. It was tweaking. It was all of these things here and there. That meant looking at what my week looked like. That meant figuring out what was my minimum requirement, right? That I could do in a day. Did I only have half an hour? Could I do 15 minutes? What was my bare minimum, right? What did that look like? And could I sustain that at least? Because then that gives you something to work with. There were other things as well, such as, outlining and how to outline in a way that works for you, because a lot of people hear outlining and sometimes we're scared that we can't deviate from the outline. So that was another thing that I had to kind of grapple with. And the other thing was, not going back, understanding that I couldn't keep stopping and going back to edit. That wouldn't serve me and it wouldn't serve my deadline. So those are kind of things that I had to end up looking at and learning. By the end of the MA, I managed. Uh, I remember the day because I literally finished and I burst into tears because I thought it was horrible. I thought I wasn't going to pass. It was actually quite hilarious. So that novel that I wrote in my second year is actually what went on to become The Colours of Death, published by Hodder and Stoughton. So there we go. So, it got us started. After the MA, I just let it sit there for a while. I didn't edit it. I didn't do any of that. I was really not planning on submitting it to anyone. But I had friends encouraging me. I had lecturers encouraging me, which was really great. And I sent it. I queried a few agents, got it out there. And very luckily, I got picked up by Ollie Munson at AM Heath. And then I got a book deal with Hodder and Stoughton. So it was a 2-book deal, which was fantastic. That's the kind of thing that you want to hear, right? You always get it's dream come true. The problem was I hadn't planned for the book to be a series. I had no idea what that would look like. I hadn't planned anything. I had vague ideas of what was going to happen to Isabel, my main character, but I didn't really put anything down. And suddenly here I was with another deadline for a second book that I hadn't even thought of. Which I suppose takes me neatly into the next part, which was I was working very hard. I managed to edit. There's a lot of going back and forth when you're editing, when you're picked up by a publisher before your book is ready to, before they consider your book ready to be sold. And so finished book 1, got book 1 done, and then I had a year for book 2. So I really had to kind of step on it. And again, I was writing around the clock, basically around my job, around all my other commitments. Thanks to the system that I had worked out while I was doing my MA and writing the first book around that full-time job, I was able to do it much more smoothly the second time around. And actually, I would argue that book 2 was the easiest writing time I've had since. Because then came book 3. So writing book 3, Broken Oaths, was where I was really tested as a full-time working writer. And also, I suppose, where my system got tested. Loads of things happened. There was a restructure at work. Everyone was having to reapply for the jobs, including myself. And now I need to learn the new job. It was a highly stressful time. And just as I was coming up for air, my dog died, right? And my dog was basically the love of my life. So then grief in writing became a new struggle, a significant one that it was really hard to get out of that space because grief is not a space that you get out of, right? Grief is grief. For a little while, I was out of commission writing wise because I was coping with life and the cards it had dealt me. I had to ask for extensions, plural. And I just remember the last extension I asked for. I was resisting it so badly because in my head, I equated asking for an extension with failure and letting people down. And that was really, really hard for me to cope with. And with the encouragement of friends of my network, I was able to ask for what I needed, which was that final extension. And I did. And I thought, oh my God, my agent's going to leave me. Oh my God, my publisher's going to ditch me. It was just a horrendous thing. They didn't. They were all lovely and very understanding of our situation. Just FYI. But I was slowly able to get back on the horse. So that's why it was 4 books in 5 years instead of 4 books in 4 years, because some things you just can't plan for. Life will keep lifing, right? It's not going to wait for you to finish what you have to get done, to throw a spanner in the works. And we can't prepare for that, but we can have a system in place that can kind of help us get back up when we need to. And I think the system that I had developed during my MA, I think that's what contributed to me being able to kind of get back up on the horse and keep going. So what is the system? You're hearing me talk about it and talk about it, but what is it? What does that look like? It looked like figuring out what are the pockets of time in your schedule, in your routine where you can write. Is that in your commute? Is that your lunch hour? Whatever that might look like to you. It's having a minimum. What is the bare minimum if you've had a really hard day or a really hard week? What is the least that you can allow yourself to do or that you can achieve even on your hardest day? What does that look like? Is it 5 words? Is it 30 words? Is it 300 words? Whatever it is, it's still more words than you had the previous day. So it's still a win and it's keeping you going, right? The other thing was not going back to edit. Do not go back to edit. You're just going to be pulling yourself. It's almost like an excuse, right? You don't think it is. It doesn't feel like an excuse. You just want it to be perfect. It won't be perfect. There is no perfection. Even after you're published, you'll pick up your book and you'll be like, oh my God, there's a typo there. Because we're human, we miss things, right? So don't go back and edit. And momentum, keeping your momentum really, really helps. And also learning how to make outlines work for you. So those are the 3 things that I think got me through, and that's how I did it. I think you also have to be very determined. You have to be very determined. But I think if you've got your system and you are determined, then you will be able to get the writing done. You'll meet your writing goals, which you need to meet. It might not be 1 book a year. It might be 1 book every 3 years, whatever that looks like for you. But having that system helps. So why am I sharing this with you? Well, I'll be sharing some of my tips and my tools here on this YouTube channel. Hopefully they'll be helpful to you if you're stuck in the same place that I was, if you're a working writer or somebody with a really busy life who keeps trying to get to your novel, but you never quite make it there. Because honestly, things aren't going to change. Your life isn't going to change overnight unless you win the lottery, in which case that's great. But life will keep lifing. And the reality is that the best time to start is now. It's not next week when you think you have more time. None of that. The time for you to start is today, right this second. No. Yeah. So hopefully the videos and the information that I will share on this channel can help you get there a little bit faster and help you keep that momentum and hold yourself accountable. And actually, those same tools and tips are also what I built my course, the 9 to 5 Novelist, around. If you're interested in seeing what that's about and how that could help you, the link will be in the description. But really, what it is in a nutshell is the system and the tools that you need to get yourself to the end. Thank you for your time, and I hope to see you next time.